It's tough to follow Ben's presentation because when we have mutating furniture and shy cameras, it's a little more interesting than government work, but we'll try and do our best. My name's Ken, and I work with the New York State Senate, and I manage an application development department. And I'm going to just give you a little history about how we came into the open source environment. Back in 2008, there was a change in leadership in the state Senate. For 41 years, or 44 years, the Senate was controlled by one particular party. We won't get into party politics. And that party changed in the 08 election. And in 09, the Senate created an office of the CIO, the Chief Information Officer. And traditionally, the Senate had been more concerned about, with technology, more concerned about internal-facing applications. In other words, the technology employees had to take care of the senators, whether that was the financial applications or the intranet, the internal website, PC support. It was always about taking care of the senators themselves. When new leadership came in and the CIO's office was created, there was a mandate to open up the Senate and make the legislative body more available to the people of New York State. And of course, part of that is open data and of course open source software. And they hired a CIO, Andrew Hoppin, who is known throughout the country for his work in open source. And he brought on a team of people that were like-minded, that knew what open source was about, knew what we needed to do in the Senate, and could get it done. So now, several years later, the Senate actually flipped again, but we're happy to say that all of our projects that we started in that period of 2 years are still ongoing within the Senate. So our mandate in the CIO's office was every project that we took on had to meet at least one of three criteria: transparency, participation, or efficiency. Transparency meaning that we were making government more available and open to the public. Efficiency meaning that we were allowing the senators and the public and staffers to get their work done more effectively, to find information more efficiently. And participation meaning that the public would have unprecedented access to the state Senate, to data in the Senate, to legislative data, to salary data, payroll information. Whatever the Senate was doing, the public would have more access and be able to offer feedback on what the Senate's doing. True participation, using social media. Senators were encouraged to get on Twitter, Facebook. I mean, I think the average age of a state senator in the state Senate is something like probably 70 years old. So these are people that were not accustomed to social media and new forms of participatory government. But we helped encourage them to move into that era, and most of our senators are now have websites, are tweeting out actively, they're interacting with their constituents on Facebook, and again, that was all a product of the CIO's office and this new paradigm, this new shift. Okay, so in terms of technology, I'll talk about some of our areas of focus. And my goal here is, I'm hoping that by the end of this, there will be one or more of you that might be interested in getting involved in some of our open source projects. We've got a ton of projects. They're all sitting up on GitHub right now. I'll talk about that later. Our first project that we took on was the re-implementation of the Senate's website. We have some other slides to discuss that. A constituent relationship management system. Normally, CRM stands for customer relationship management. For people that are familiar with that, might have a business background. But in government, we call it constituent relationship management, which is how a senator or how an elected official engages with their constituency. Our web services, our legislative data, our open legislation service was another one of our flagship applications, which I'll have Graylin dig into a little bit later. Help desk problem tracking and software development and source code management. All of which really, in the past, hadn't been thought about in the Senate. Pretty much everything you're seeing here 2 years ago did not exist. Okay, with respect to the Senate's website, 2 years ago, the Senate's website was pretty much an outdated 90s looking website. It was very difficult for senators to publish data. It was highly controlled and pipelined, so that if a senator wanted to change their website, they'd have to make a phone call, say, here's the data I want to publish. There might be pieces of paper printed up that have to be sent to senators' offices, and here's our designs, here's what we're thinking about. And it was this whole project just to get some data published to a website. And of course, there was the politics of one party and the other party, and do we want to allow them to do this? Oh, are they campaigning on the site, whatnot? So it was a difficult process, and it's not how today we think about websites, especially with content management systems being available. And of course, the member office, when we say member office, we mean the actual senators and their staff. They did not have direct control over their sites. And the public, it was a public-facing site. It was probably one of the few parts of the Senate that actually faced the public and allowed the public to have some insights into what the Senate was doing. It was mostly, quote-unquote, advertising for senators. The new site, we re-implemented this using Drupal, obviously a pretty good content management system. And right off the bat, that allowed senators to be empowered to control their own content. So now, each senator has a space on the website, and their own staff can log in and publish content on their own. And of course, we give each senator, a carousel, we give them polls, we give them the ability to blog, post news, and every senator is equally empowered to do the same thing. No one gets preferential treatment. There are some rules, of course, that they have to follow. You can't post something negative about another senator. You can't be political. But the site is far more dynamic and now far more interactive than it used to be. So the public can sign in, and you can request updates from senators. You can answer polls. You can take surveys. And actually, we are in the process of upgrading to Drupal 7. Just out of show of hands, has anyone that uses Drupal, has anyone gone through that upgrade yet? Does anyone use Drupal? Okay. Does anyone know what Drupal is? Okay. And so now, again, the site is far more interactive, and senators now have the ability to control their own content. And on top of it, we use what's known as the Web Services module for Drupal, which allows API access to the data that's being stored at the site. And we'll talk about how we integrate some of our other applications with the main website using that API. Our intranet is a project that is still underway. In fact, it kind of got tabled. I think a couple years ago I might have spoken about that here. Right now, our entire intranet is based on a proprietary software called Lotus from IBM. Our plan is to re-implement that using Drupal, possibly Drupal Commons or Open Atrium. We've played around with both of them. Both are newer projects. We want to see where they go, but of course it's all open source. So that'd be great to have both our public-facing site and our internal site on the same platform. And providing better search and indexing to Senate staffers, and better integration with our CRM, which I'll talk about, and our open legislation service. The largest project we took on since the CIO's office was created was our constituent relationship management application. The old application was called OMIS, which stood for Online Master File Information System, bogus terms. And it was hosted on an old mainframe, which just last year we finally ditched. There were a couple remaining applications, and when I was here a year or so ago, we still had the mainframe going, and I was talking about the applications that were remaining. We are now completely off the mainframe, and it's gone. So that's kind of nice, because we're also saving money for the Senate, which is saving taxpayer money, and also saving on the massive amounts of power that it took to run this behemoth box. We went through probably a 2 to 3 month long process investigating CRMs. And again, CRM typically is customer relationship management, so there's Sugar CRM and Salesforce.com, these various offerings. But we were really leaning toward trying to find an open source solution for CRM, and there are a bunch out there. And after this whole after we went through an entire process, it really came down to 2 CRMs. One was a Sugar CRM derivative called IntelliCRM, and the other one was called Civi CRM. And for those of you that are online now, if you go to civicrm.org, it's CIVI-CRM.org, you can see that this is an active, very active open source CRM project. It's written in PHP, uses MySQL on the back end. And the Senate's been working with a set of consultants over the past couple of years, and plus our own staff that we've been building up our own internal expertise on this. It's a pretty massive application, but it's completely open source, so every day we're in IRC, there's a CiviCRM IRC channel where we can ask questions of developers. The original authors of the software are still very active with the project. In fact, they're very involved in the Senate, and the Senate has really brought a lot more, it's brought up the profile of this project tremendously. So they talk about CiviCRM, they travel around the country giving talks about the application, and now the Senate is it is the largest ever installation of CiviCRM with probably 12 to 15 million contact records in there, 12 to 15 million registered voters effectively. We have 62 state senators, for those that don't know. In fact, we just recently, I don't know if people follow anything that's happening in New York, but we just had this very popular piece of legislation passed, the Marriage Equality Act. And everyone was wondering why the numbers were so strange, because we had to get to 33 senators. Well, that's because 32, of course, is the halfway point. And I said 31 is the halfway point. We needed to get to 32. I said, well, we ended up with 33. So it's 32 votes we needed, 33 got it passed. That particular piece of legislation, I'm going to talk about some of the services that we offer. That particular piece of legislation brought in more hits than certainly than we've ever seen, but it brought the numbers up. When you look at the graph, it's tremendous. There was just a lot of statewide interest in that particular bill, and our servers got swamped because of it. Each of the 62 senators has their own individual database. There's about 250,000 contacts in each database. We share one code base across all of those databases. So this is I guess you'd call it a multi-site Drupal installation. We only use Drupal for authentication, so when a user logs in, they actually log into our LDAP server, where we store all of our Senate staff login, usernames, passwords, all of that. Once you log in, you're assigned a group, and your group maps to a Drupal role, and that tells you whether you're a Senate staffer, or an administrator, or conference services, or print production, or whatever department you're in. You're assigned effectively your LDAP group that you're in the Senate's database is translated into a Drupal role. After that, you're not in Drupal anymore, you're entirely in CiviCRM, except that we've hacked the product up tremendously to work in a legislative environment, because CiviCRM was originally written for nonprofit use. And of course, we're a legislative body, so we've contributed a lot of code back to core. Raylan's been instrumental in that. That was our plan from the start, that we would get involved in this project. Our consultants gave us great rates because they knew that our own team would be involved in the project. We'd be contributing source code back and making the application much better. So it's been an incredible exchange with the original core developers. We have contacts, activities, cases, reports. These are just the various objects in the system. Contacts are the people. Activities are things that are done, whether you receive an email from a constituent, or a phone call came in, or a letter came in, or a constituent visited the senator's office and had something to say. We capture that with activities. If there's an issue that a constituent needs addressed, that becomes a case, and a case is really a group of activities. So a constituent called, said, I didn't get my Social Security check, referred over to the Social Security office, got a return phone call from there, and you can track it from start to finish and close the case out, which is really important because constituents want to know that their senator is actually addressing issues that they're calling about. We can generate lots of reports, and our latest and greatest problem that we're tackling in the CRM is data importation. Senators have tons of data, most of it captured on spreadsheets. And they want to get all this data into their CRM. Now that we have this brand new CRM and they're all excited about it, they have a lot of legacy data that they're trying to import. And the importation quandary is difficult because all of their data is in different formats. So you have conversion issues. Sometimes you have, for just something simple, some senators might have names in one field. So for someone's full name in one field, whereas the CRM wants names in multiple fields. So you might have to do some type of parsing. Addresses can be in many different formats. I've never understood addressing as much until I got involved with this project. But USPS has strict standards. We have to try and rewrite addresses to adhere to those standards. The biggest problem with data import is data deduplication. We don't want to take a senator's list. Let's say a senator has a list of 2,000 contacts that they've met at various events, and they want to get that into the system. We don't want to import that and have it create 2,000 new records. It's highly likely that out of those 2,000 records, probably 90, 95% of them are already in their CRM, and we're just importing additional information. Maybe the senator captured a bunch of email addresses from constituents or phone numbers, or all of these constituents were at a gathering for against hydrofracking. So we want to tag all of those constituents that they're against hydrofracking. How do we do that? Well, we don't want to create 2,000 new ones and say this is a group of people that's against hydrofracking. We want to tag, we want to match them up to records that are already in the database and then tag them appropriately. So deduplication it's a science. And actually one of our projects that we're working on right now would be an independent matching application. We do have a piece of commercial software that does this. We'd really like to implement our own open source data deduplication service, bulk deduplication, which is it's difficult because we want it to perform adequately. You don't want the thing to run for days trying to figure out what which records are the same. It's got to perform adequately, but also you don't want to generate what we call false positives. You don't want to merge two people that are really not the same person. Any questions about CRM? This is our largest, probably the largest project the Senate's ever tackled. And every senator and their staff members are in this application every day, constantly entering information, or they get stacks of paper, or they get emails from constituents. They tend to print their emails, which is another issue. And that's another project. We actually would like to write an application that can take their emails, scan emails, and actually figure out what the topic of the email is, and tag constituents appropriately, just by using heuristics. There's a lot of areas where we can continue moving into. But this is highly used. The transactions that we see coming through the MySQL database, every second of the day, there's literally hundreds of transactions. It's really amazing to see. Alongside our main applications, we have implemented some web services. I would say our flagship web service is called Sage, which is the Senate address geocoding engine. This is a service that basically takes addresses, manipulates them, standardizes them, and figures out where that person lives in terms of political boundaries. So for example, here in Troy right now, I could geocode this address and we would get a latitude and a longitude, and then I can say, well, what Senate district is this? And the service will tell me you're in Senate District 43, what Assembly District, it's 106, what Congressional District, 21, and then knowing your Senate District, Assembly District, Congressional District, School District, you can figure out who your elected representatives are, etc. So Sage is meant to, we pass addresses into Sage, and first of all, I should say it's a service aggregator. So Sage itself as an application written in Java using Tomcat, it doesn't actually try and figure this stuff out on its own. What it does is it passes addresses on to other services that we interface with. The first one for address standardization is the USPS Address Information Service. We're using a free service from the post office that you connect to, pass an address in, and it gives you back a standardized address. So it's pretty cool. You can actually type in your address with the wrong zip code, and you'll get back your address with the right zip code. Or you can type in your address with a road instead of an avenue, and it knows that, oh, you're actually at the avenue. So it's a great service because it allows us, when people are data entering and make mistakes, this helps when they save their records, and we immediately contacted this service. It goes out to Sage, Sage goes out to USPS, we get back the corrected address, and actually that helps when we talk about data deduplication, because one of the ways you're going to dedupe records is comparing an address, right? We'll talk about the algorithms later. We also interface with an open source product called Geocoder. Geocoder basically allows you to load tiger line data into it. Tiger line data is latitude, longitude data, so it can take addresses and map them to actual coordinates. We can usually get within a few hundred feet of the address with our coordinates, but in more rural areas we can be off by a mile or more. We're trying to tighten that up a little bit. Yahoo has their own service. Google has their service. Bing has a service where you type in addresses and it geocode them. Sage will actually interface with those services as well. So we have hooks into Google, Yahoo, Bing, but we have our own geocoder service. And when you make calls to Sage, when you use the Sage API, you can specify which geocoding service you want to use. And finally, we use the open source GeoServer software. GeoServer allows you to load shape files into it, and then it knows each shapefile represents a particular political boundary, and then given coordinates, you can get back the political boundary. And since Sage itself is integrated with various applications that we use, the CRM, most importantly, because when you're in the CRM, then you type in a constituent's address, you want to know what districts that constituent lives in, and you want to geocode them. We actually have a mapping feature within the CRM so that a senator can bring up a constituent record, and it'll bring up a map and show you where that constituent is. We can do searching based on location. So for example, if a senator is going to have a town hall meeting in a municipality, they can do maybe a 5-mile or maybe a 2-mile search around an area and pull up all the constituents that are in that area, and now blast email out to them and say, hey, Senator McDonald's going to be in your neighborhood on Tuesday, and come out to talk about whatever. So that's our flagship web service. And then we also have our website that I was talking about, nysenate.gov. We're using the Drupal services module for that. And I'll just give you an example of what we do with data that we're gathering. On our website, we have sign-up forms. You can sign up to receive updates from a particular senator. You can sign up to receive updates from the Senate as a whole. You can sign up for updates from particular committees. You can answer surveys, questions, polls, whatever. That data is stored at nysenate.gov, and then we can access that data using the API that's provided by Drupal. And right now we pull that data into, for example, to our CRM. So now you can start seeing an integration point. Our CRM captures constituent data. If constituents are logging into our main website and providing information about themselves, that's stored there. CRM can pull and connect and pull data over. And then we enter that deduplication problem again, where we're getting data coming in from the website, we want to update some data, constituent record data, and we've got to do that. We don't want to create new records unnecessarily. Questions about web services, Sage? Yes?
Can anyone access that USPS address corrective service?
You have to sign up for it. You have to, basically you sign up with USPS, which is free, and then you answer some questions about what you want to do with their free API. And in fact, it's a funny story because the first time I signed up, I checked all the boxes. I said, yeah, we want to do bulk, we want to do one-offs, we want to do this and that. And we got denied. The Senate got denied because they don't want you actually doing bulk. They want you to pay for their service if you want to do bulk address correction. So we submitted it. Thank God. We learned quickly. Someone else had it.
I was going to say, and that's why we do the aggregation for the geocoding stuff, is because we can't do the volume without integrating all these different services and basically balancing between them without paying for it.
We sent too many through at one point, and they disabled us for a period of time. So
I mean, so people, I'm not sure what our policy is. Can people request keys to use our Sage engine? Like right now, we use it internally.
yeah, right now, Sage is actually running in the cloud, but we are not giving access out to the public. The plan is eventually to do so once the service is, once we can actually do bulk. Because if we had thousands of people coming in right now, then USPS would shut us down again.
But if you got your own keys, you could take the code and get up and install it if you wanted to service yourself.
Someone else have a question?
Yeah, I was just curious if you could talk more about the public shapefile.
Well, the shape files, I don't know, we download them from some type of geo service. It's a New York State service. They're in some type of, I think it's KML, or I think it's some type of KML format. And you can download them freely from New York State. And we just loaded them all into this open source application called GeoServer, and then it works. Yep.
For the USPS service, could you distribute the requests across a few accounts?
Sure, but we'd have to sign up for more accounts. We have one account, but I know what you're saying. If everyone wants to sign up for one and then send us their keys, I guess we could have a nice distributed service, but, yeah, I know, I mean, ultimately, we're gonna have to pay for it, that's all. The free service will get us so far, but as we want to expand our own offerings, we're gonna have to eventually pay it first. Anyone else? Okay, legislative data. At the same time that we started the redesign of the website, we also started a project called Open Ledge, or Open Legislation. Legislative data has been available over the web for both the Assembly, which is the other legislative body, and the Senate for quite some time. The problem is the website was considered out of date, and there were different levels of access depending on whether you were the public or whether you were someone paying for the service, such as a lobbyist. So we decided that, when our group came in, we decided that legislative data should be free, that everyone should have access to it equally. We still were careful. We didn't want to blow the entire business model that LBDC set up. LBDC is the Legislative Bill Drafting Commission. So LBDC sits in the middle of the Senate and the Assembly. All the bills that senators want to draft, they send their request to LBDC, and LBDC does all the drafting. They're considered the archives of bill data, the archiving group for bill data. But again, they don't make all of their information available to the public as well as they do for paying customers. So we have a service that logs in, and now it's every 5 minutes, we pull all legislative data, all updates that are coming from LBDC, and it's stored in our own application. In this case, it was, originally we designed it with just MySQL. Now it's MySQL with Lucene. I won't get into details because I'll let Braylon give you a little primer on OpenLedge. But basically, OpenLedge is both a website where you can sign in and look up bill information, and it's also, and this is where the power of OpenLedge comes in. It's also a service. It's an API, so you can design your own applications around OpenLedge. And as an example, I think our Drupal site, our main website, uses OpenLedge.
You have to go fast. You have to go fast.
Okay, all right. I'm going to go faster then. So, Braylon, maybe you're not going to give the details about OpenLedge. Our CRM uses OpenLedge because constituents might call about a particular bill, and so when a staffer is typing in a bill number, that's actually connecting out to our OpenLedge service and pulling bill data in. And we had a guy who actually wrote an instant messaging bot where you can send a bill request to the bot connects to our OpenLedge service, and then the bot tells you back information about the bill. Again, because the API is flexible, you can do that kind of stuff. And in our data formats, you can see various formats there. Also with legislative data, we now have a service called Bill Buzz. The bills that are published on our OpenLedge service allow you to comment on them. Again, it's something that was never available before. The comments that are left, the senator's generally not going to see them. The senators aren't logging in and looking for comments. Bill Buzz sweeps through using the Discuss API, pulls the bill comments and aggregates them and emails them in a feed to the senators. And then users, staffers can sign up for those updates as well and register your interest in particular senators or the entire Senate. And we use Java, Tomcat, and Data Nucleus for persistence for that. I'll skip help desk and problem tracking. We're using Redmine right now for our main problem issue tracking system, which is written in Ruby, unfortunately. And finally, our source code development and source code management. We try and develop all of our applications in one of two environments, Java 6 being one, where we use the Tomcat servlet engine and MySQL on the back end, and Maven 2 and Lucene for full text search, and PHP 5 and MySQL and Drupal in our other environment. We have a couple other projects that are in a different environment, but generally we're trying to go with Java, PHP, and Eclipse wraps all of that together. We have all of our projects in Subversion. We have mostly moved to Git now. We argue every day about Git. I'm not 100% sold on it yet. Braylon loves it. I guess I'm getting there. Actually, if you want to visit our open source repository, github.com/nycencio. You can see all of our projects, all source code is published, and open.nycent.gov. Our site content is under Creative Commons licensing, and that's it. We have a lot more we could talk about, but I know I'm out of time, that's why I'm talking fast. Questions?
Thanks.
Okay.
Ken, you will also send me the slides?
I will send you the slides.
Okay. We had 2 other talks that are scheduled, but I know that you're all itching to go, and this is the Friday before Labor Day, so Matt has agreed. Oh, by the way, there are 2 big success stories that I wanted to say to the crowd. There are many success stories, but 2